Welcome to Wall Street from Main Street podcast special. My name is Mo Dude. I have John Manfreda along with me. Today's special guest is Bill Murphy, the Chairman of GATA. Bill, thank you for joining us.
Great to be here. Thanks for asking me.
All right, Bill. I just wanted to get into my first question about this job report. What you're famous for is you're widely spoken out against the gold and silver price manipulation. And when I see the job reports, no matter what the results are for the past year, 2 years, no matter what, where job reports are going up or the job numbers go down, they say, oh, well, it's just a sell-off and everything every time it's a bad job report. And if there's a good job report, they say, oh, well, gold and silver and the miners, they went out of those assets and went into equities because of the bullish job reports. Do you see any increased manipulation during job report days than something that would otherwise occur normally?
Well, we've been reporting on this for a decade. 90 to 95% of the time, around at least a jobs report, something unusual happens to gold and silver and they get hit. And, of course, this past week was especially egregious in that the actual jobs number was less than expected. You need 250,000 new jobs to be created in a month just to keep pace with population growth. It was well less than half of that. The jobs number the unemployment number just happened to come down to 7.8%, a new low for the Obama administration since he took over, with a month to go in the election. And when it comes to gold, which is just ludicrous how this could happen. And then, and more specifically for gold and silver, as soon as the number was hit, even though the dollar went lower, the euro went higher, gold and silver were slaughtered in seconds. It made no sense whatsoever. And that's what this gold cartel does. This is how they operate, as you said so often around a jobs report. And it's just so counterintuitive. And then, of course, that sets the tone for the whole day. Gold had just broken out, and silver had finally given us a close above 35, and they took it right away immediately.
And that's a great point. And the job number, like the gold and silver market, is manipulated as well. If you look at the real job number that shadowstat.com, which John William runs, the real employment number is around 22%, which is like the Great Depression numbers right there. So this leading to my next question, why are the big banks manipulating the gold and silver prices? And do you think the U.S. government is in some way involved in this manipulation?
Yes, well, when GATA first started, we came into existence because we realized that certain bullion banks were trying to stop the price of gold from getting above 300 way back in 1999. Long-term capital management, the hedge fund had blown up, and they were all short gold in various trades, and the Fed got involved. And we're talking about banks like Morgan and Chase, Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs. But as we went on further, we realized the U.S. government was involved, the Exchange Stabilization Fund, the Fed, the Treasury, the Bank for International Settlements, Bank of England. It was much bigger than we thought, much more comprehensive. And it's very simple. Gold has actually been manipulated much more than it hasn't been. It was, people might remember the gold pool and back in the 60s where the price of gold was fixed and so on. And basically it has to do with gold's a barometer of U.S. financial market health. When gold goes way up, it's screaming or something. What are your headlines? Something is wrong somewhere. There's too much inflation. It's a crisis. Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary, while at Harvard, wrote a paper between the relationship between gold and interest rates. So a rising gold price is bad for business. It's bad for the politicians, bad for the bankers, bad for Wall Street. So they got in this manipulation scheme, and they've been at it for a very long time, and as long as God has been in existence since January of 1999.
That's a great point, and actually just thought of another question. Is you said that rising gold price is bad for the bankers. If you look at a lot of the mainstream press, such as CNBC, you see that a lot of the big banks are actually their advertising clients. And do you think that may be a reason why the press will cover LIBOR manipulation but not gold and silver, or are you seeing something different about why the press will never cover it?
Well, it's a very perceptive point. I mean, basically, they're big ads. It's where a lot of the big advertising comes from. And again, God has taken on the richest, most powerful people in the world, and they're very much intertwined. Much of Wall Street and business is, quite frankly, it's price rigging. And it is conspiracy stuff. That's what it is, and that's the reason they talk so much against it. They don't even want to talk about it because they come up with all these stupid comments about, black helicopter people, and it's just absurd. And as you brought up, the LIBOR price manipulation, perfect example. Well, how big is this market? We're setting interest rates and for such a key level, and so many people involved, and it's been going on for a very long time. And it just now gets discovered because they had a whistleblower at Barclays Bank, where actually there's some of their board of directors decided to cut it all out and exposed it. It was a whistleblower thing. How many people knew about that all these years? And certainly, if they're going to manipulate a market like that, why wouldn't they be manipulating gold and silver too? I mean, it's no stretch whatsoever. So it's all intertwined, and they won't talk about it. There is no free press in America. That's a big farce, just as we don't have free markets anymore. I was on CNBC 13 years ago, not allowed back in the United States since. BNN told Jay Taylor, who was a well-known newsletter writer, that he should not mention GATA. Bloomberg's Gold's financial writer, Claudia Carpenter, told John Embry and Chris Powell and myself in London that her editors will not allow GATA to be mentioned. Well, what the heck is that all about? First of all, we've had 4 international conferences. The last one was sold out in London, 400 people from 40 countries. And we've been right on the gold price for 12 years, and yet we're not allowed to speak about it?
And it shows you that Wall Street, the government, and the mainstream media are all sleeping together, so to speak. They all work together, and they try not to shed the Wall Street or the government in a bad light, and they'll go out of their way to make sure that doesn't happen.
Well, that's 100% on the money.
But at least GATA has some mainstream commodity expert like Dennis Gartman finally admitting that some of your claims are correct. Did GATA feel vindicated that some of the commodity experts are coming out and saying that you guys are right?
Well, of course we'd like that, and of course the LIBOR thing was vindication of that our thinking is correct. And I've known Dennis; he's a good man. We'll go back and forth, but it's pretty hard when you look at all the evidence that GATA has not to understand that we're correct. I mean, it's overwhelming, and eventually this is going to come out. We're waiting right now for hopefully a scandal to break in the silver market regarding J.P. Morgan. There's overwhelming evidence that they've been manipulating the market, and there are things going on in that arena behind the scenes, and I would have thought it was broken by now, but it hasn't yet. But J.P. Morgan's got a big problem with their silver position, and eventually this is going to come to light.
Yeah. I was also wondering, another thing was, you said earlier in the interview that gold and silver is more manipulated now today than it was in the past, and I was wondering, do you think that is due to the Commodity Futures Modernization Act, which I personally think allowed complete rigging of markets?
Well, you don't know. When I say that, I mean on a day-to-day basis, I've never seen it so obvious, and they do things that are so counterintuitive that there's no other conclusion that there's malign forces working in the market, because it just they don't act the way they should at times, and it happened over and over again. And we can point out things, and this has happened especially since February 29th, when gold was really bombed this year, and the same things happen over and over again. They allow 1% moves up, 2%, no follow-throughs. They attack what you call when they go to work, the London traders at 9 a.m. in the morning and following the PM fix and the AXX market. And you can identify times when they do things. They signal gold coming weakness by weakening silver first. It happens, repetitively, X number of times a month. And it's becoming much more obvious. And to get right to the answer to the question, I think it's because they're becoming more desperate and that they're running out of less physical gold and silver supplies to get the job done, and they're having a lot more trouble these days keeping the price down.
Now, let's talk about the recent COT report that just came out. And it showed a big increase in short position for the gold and silver market. For the silver market, the big bank shorted as of now 309.4 million ounces of silver, which is about 150 days of world silver production, and 22.84 million ounces of gold. Now, do you think the increase in short position will have an impact on the gold and silver prices in the short term? It seemed like the bank was trying to keep silver from blowing past that $35 resistance level for silver and the 1780 mark for gold.
Well, that's exactly right. That's what they're doing. And they're trying to get enough pressure in the derivatives market, meaning the paper market, and selling futures and other vehicles to try to get the prices of gold and silver down enough to turn the technical systems bearish and to get a lot of the speculative longs to pitch their positions, and which can cascade the price down. And the commercials, as they call them, are the big gold and silver shorts, and many of those are the gold cartel. Then they're against the speculative longs and also the physical market, and that's the key. If the physical market holds up and enough buyers come in at these levels, then they're not going to force the speculators out because the price will go right back up again. But if the physical market weakens enough and they can turn these systems and the buyers pull back, then they'll win. But I'm still betting that the physical market is strong enough, but you won't know till as the days go by, the proof's in the pudding, and what happens.
All right. I was actually wondering also is when listening to James Rickards, he actually doesn't think that they try to keep the golden price silver, quote unquote, down because they know with the free market forces they won't be able to do it. So he believes that they're trying to manage the price up. So that way,
well, I would say it's the same thing. Gold's going up. It's a good point. Gold did up 12 years in a row, and we call it a managed retreat. But but they do it by keeping it down. If gold at 1,750 or 60 or 70, without what they're doing, it'd be at 27, 28, 2,900. Silver would probably be over 50 right now. So it is price suppression, and you're right, they're managing the retreat. They can't keep it down because as each year goes by, they need physical supply over a period of time to meet demand. They can only influence the market on a short-term basis.
And not only that, but you also got to look at it now. The ECB and Draghi, they're printing money, and Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke has said, we're going to do unlimited or open-ended QE. And I just don't see, those are just, the fundamentals are just too strong to, keep it down forever. I think it would have to definitely be a managed retreat.
Well, the question is, do they lose control of their management? And that's what we don't know yet. They've been at it at these price levels for almost a month now. And they're relentless. And, but if the physical markets are that strong, they're just going to lose control. And at some point, they can lose control of their management. Because, as you're saying, the demand is just too strong. There's too many big buyers, countries, that are going to overwhelm their ability to be effective.
And that's a great point. I want to talk a little bit about the U.S. COMEX. Do you believe that the U.S. COMEX is on a factual paper scam concerning the gold and silver, where there's almost no real metal backing up the long and future contract for people who want to take delivery of the physical?
Well, I'm not going to dispute the amount of silver and gold reported in the COMEX. Let's assume it is what it is there. But where I think what you're talking about and where GATA comes from is that generally we believe that the gold and silver markets are like the paper market in the U.S., the bank market, where it's a fractional reserve system. And that basically we believe that for many reasons that gold and silver the same gold and silver have been sold over and over again, and that people that have the gold and silver in these various unallocated accounts have their gold being, again, if everyone tried to take it out at the same time, it wouldn't be there. And this can eventually cause a run on the bank because, again, the gold and silver are not there. And they sell that same gold and silver and use the proceeds over and over again and make a lot of money out of it. Because, they're a lot of these times they're charging people for what's there. I mean, a number of years ago, Morgan Stanley was fined millions of dollars for charging clients for silver storage when the silver wasn't there. And they got caught. So we're not just making this up, and someday this could be a big problem.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I was actually wondering, the big banks and the manipulation and everything, I was looking at the ETFs and everything, and of course, if you do more research, you see, is it backed by gold and silver? It's probably not there. Do you think the ETF is just a instrument, a security instrument used to help manipulate gold and silver? Well,
again, you guys know your stuff. You're asking very appropriate questions. First of all, there's different ETFs. I mean, the spot ETF is 100% valid in both gold and silver, and yet where there are certain ones that are a little dubious, like the one backed by HSBC and the gold area, and Morgan in the silver area, it's GLD and SOV, that they also happen to be the major shorts in each market. Somebody's saying just recently that Citigroup is up there with HSBC or a little more at the moment, but it's ironic that the two big gold and silver shorts on the futures market are the custodians of the major gold and silver ETFs, and it's very suspicious. There's nothing in their charters or subscription agreements that prevents them from mobilizing the gold and silver that they supposedly have for their clients and using it in some way. And I bet the rants that J.P. Morgan is using that silver in their silver trading operations on the COMEX.
And that's a great point, and I think it's safe to say that people who want to invest in the ETF should look at the spot ETF that's out there rather than the GOD and SOV. It's okay to use the GOD SOV for trading purposes, but to buy and hold, I don't think it would be a good idea to have those ETFs. Let's lead to my next question regarding the paper gold and silver market and the real supply and demand figures for gold and silver. Would you agree that if you just look at the supply and demand figures for gold and silver, that the price should be a lot higher if you compare that to the paper price for the gold and silver market?
I touched on that a bit earlier. Yes, I mean I think gold is probably 2/3 of what it should be, and the same thing with silver. They should be much higher in price, and that's why they will go higher in price because, as we've been discussing, they can only manage this retreat. The prices of gold and silver are going to move way up from these levels.
An excellent point. I want to shift gear to the investigation of the CFTC into the silver market, which I believe they're supposed to have a comment regarding the investigation soon. Why do you think the CFTC ignored a credible whistleblower like Andrew Maguire? I believe a few years ago he came out and said that he gave good evidence how the silver and gold market was manipulated, and I believe you went to the CFTC hearing to try to put in your input on the gold and silver manipulation, even though it wasn't publicly televised. Do you think it's because the banking industry spent a lot of money and time lobbying the CFTC to make sure they got what they wanted and the status quo remained in place? Is that why they ignored the credible whistleblower like Andrew Maguire?
That's what we're up against. The CFTC is a very dismal organization. I have the highest respect for Commissioner Bart Chilton, who gave us a chance to get that testimony in, but it's ludicrous. I mean, here we had what Andrew did was for months give the CFTC in advance what Morgan was going to do, and then they did it. I mean, and they sent an email to this effect. I mean, it doesn't get any more damning than this. The CFTC's been investigating silver now for 4 years. They just don't want to take on Morgan, and most likely the U.S. government is the client. I mean, it's a nightmare, and it's really a terrible situation. We expect something to come to light, as I said earlier, very soon. I can't get into details, but I can tell you that the evidence presented against Morgan is more damning than that was. I mean, it's 10 times more, 100 times more. And yet whether they'll do anything with it or wherever it's been presented, or whether it's the British authorities or whoever they presented it to, we'll just have to see. But I have no clue why it would be taking this long, because it's a crime in progress, and the crime keeps going on.
That's pretty interesting. I actually wondered the same thing about Morgan. When will this come to light? I actually wanted to visit your last prediction in August. You said something explosive was going to happen in terms of prices, and you said they're definitely going up, and they did go up. Do you see a more explosive movement this year, or do you think it will continue at the same sort of gradual?
Well, nobody really knows. I mean, look what they've just done the past, couple of days. I mean, gold and silver are breaking out, and then they just are just bomb it. I mean, with just blatantly, no matter what the fundamentals are. However, I can say the fundamentals are extremely bullish. Yes, I expect things to continue a lot higher as before the end of the year. And at some point, we're liable to get a very explosive day. I mean, they're just fundamentals are too bullish. But they're going to do all they can in the United States to keep gold and silver in check as much as possible ahead of our elections. Again, just keeping in mind, a sharply rising gold price is a barometer thing of not good for the money in power. And that power wants to stay in power, and so they're going to do what they can to not only just playing games with the financial reports like they just did with their jobs report, but also in the markets themselves.
And that's a great point. And I believe the politicians and the bankers, the last thing they want people to do is dump the U.S. dollars for gold and silver, because they know what that means. They know that the way of doing business would soon come to an end for them. And even if we go back to a gold or silver standard, that would mean that the bankers wouldn't have that much money to gamble with from the Federal Reserve, and that the politician wouldn't able to spend as much as they like on social program and wars and bailouts. And this will lead to my final question for you. What factor do you think will end the manipulation in the precious metals market?
They run out of physical. I think it's that simple. They're going to be there until they have no choice but to quit. And it'll come a time when the markets will be just that explosive, and it's just too difficult to do, and they're just going to have to pretty much bow out of what they've been doing.
And that's great. Well, Bill Murphy, thank you for coming on for an interview. If people want to find more about what you do and about GATA, where can they go?
They can go to GATA.org and get on a free mailing list. Chris Powell, my colleague, Secretary Treasury, does a great job. I have a subscription website, Le Metropole Cafe, LeMetropolecafe.com, and anybody who's interested can sign up for a 2-week free trial, and think if it's of value, they can sign up.